Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Season 1, episode 6. Oh, we're doing all right for ourselves, aren't we, Chris?
Whoop, whoop. Yeah. Hey, guys.
Weeks. Yeah, so, me again. Hello. Joined, of course, by that guy over there. Hi, Chris.
Hey,
So, we got some interesting topics to talk about, I think, this week, especially in the Elite League. Got some fun stuff coming up. So, I think we should start as we normally do by going through the scores and the standings. Chris, do you want to take that?
Okay.
You seem very good at it every week. It's kind of like your thing, and I like it.
Okay, so I'll start off with the results in the Elite League. This is Elite League only because I have a new app on my phone called Flash Scores. If anyone doesn't have Flash Scores, it's not. This isn't sponsored by them. I should point out.
They're not sponsoring us. Hey, shut up.
Okay, fine. Okay, so where are we going back to? What are we on? 15th. We're going back to what? The 8th. 8th. Okay, so on Wednesday, the Belfast Giants beat the Guildford Flames by 3-2.
And that game was on Free Sports.
It was.
And it was quite good.
Moving forward to Saturday, and the Manchester Storm beat the Coventry Blaze by 5-2. The Cardiff Devils beat the Dundee Stars by the same scoreline, and the Panthers beat the Steelers again by 5-2.
Indeed.
Finally, on Saturday, the Five Flyers beat the Guildford Flames 6-3. Moving forward into Sunday, and Belfast beat Nottingham by 6-1. Glasgow beat Dundee by 3-2. That was on penalty shots. Nice. 2-2 at the end of regulation. Coventry beat Manchester 5-3, and Fife beat Guildford 6-5. That's in the Elite League. The Elite League standings for you still has the Panthers on top, 3 points clear of the Five Flyers in second, but Five have 5 games in hand.
What a fantastic start to the season Five have had.
It is, tremendous. Yeah. Belfast are in third on 12, Cardiff in fourth also on 12, Coventry in fifth on 9, Guildford in sixth with 8, Manchester in seventh with 8, Glasgow rounding out the final playoff spot at this early stage also on 8 points, and then outside the playoffs in 9th is Dundee with 7, in 10th Milton Keynes with 6, and at the bottom of the table the Sheffield Steelers in 11th with 6 as well. Moving through to the Challenge Cup, there was a couple of Challenge Cup games that took place over the course of the past week. The Belfast Giants beat the Glasgow Clan by 4-3. That was on Saturday night. And last night, the Cardiff Devils won away at Milton Keynes by 5-4. The standings there mean that in Group A, the Belfast Giants are guaranteed to top their group with 10 points. The Dundee Stars in second on 6 points. They're also guaranteed to go through, as the Five Flyers in third on 5 points have played all of their games, and Glasgow can't catch Dundee. In Group B, it's as you were, Sheffield Steelers on 5, Manchester on 4 and Nottingham on 3. Just that one showdown game at the start of November between Manchester and Nottingham. It is, yeah. It is, and in Group C, Cardiff, they've only played 4 games each. They've got 2 each left to play. Cardiff top the group on 8 points. Guildford in second on 4. Milton Keynes and Coventry have 2 each. The fixtures coming up, we have one game tomorrow in the Challenge Cup where Glasgow face Dundee. That game between Nottingham and Manchester is on the 2nd of November.
Oh, okay.
So the Challenge Cup standings are as they were, but of course that can all change when you eliminate the bottom team and do the regroupings and all the stuff we spoke about last week or 2 weeks ago. Last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, Chris. Very interesting scenario. I'm just looking at the Elite League standings at the moment, and Cardiff have only lost 1 game so far this season.
That's because they've done all their losing in the Champions Hockey League.
Yeah,
that's why.
I mean, they've been decimated in the CHL, but wow, Cardiff. I mean, you can, like we said last week, their roster is very much geared for a domestic league championship. They're going for that three-peat, and it's quite obvious. I mean, they're on 6 points in the league, 6 wins in 7 games, 12 points, sorry, in the league. 6 points in 7 games. Like, that's incredible. But Fife, they have done fantastically well. 6 wins. They haven't lost in regulation yet in the league. I mean, they've had a bumpy ride in the Challenge Cup by the sounds of it, but Fife are doing tremendously well in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, there's several teams that have now played double-digit games, and we're starting to see a bit of a spread created here now. Milton Keynes, I mean, they're 3-5-0. They've won their most recent game. Like, they've still played 8 games, so if they went up to 10 games like some of the other teams, and if they won both of them, they'd have a 500 record. That's not bad for their sophomore season in the league. And Guildford, I mean, they're just under 500. They've played 9 games, 4-5-0.
Yeah.
It's still very close. The only thing is Nottingham have 2 games in hand on the next, like, highest played team. I mean, the teams next to them in the standings, I mean, there's a team that's got, 5 games in hand?
Yeah, Fife are in second. Yeah. They've got 5 games in hand over the Panthers. I mean, if they win those, they go like 7 points ahead of them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Elite League standings as we go forward. I mean, like we said, with the earlier episodes of this podcast we did, it was very difficult to tell what was going to happen. And, of course, we were talking about stats from like the first 2 weeks, and it was very much early days. This is kind of the point where we're starting to see that spread start to happen, which is awesome. So that's it for the standings and the games that took place this week. We'll talk about the upcoming fixtures this week at the end of our EIHL
at the end
segment.
Of the Elite League section.
Of course, the wonderful Chris Gadsby will hook us up with them. So, we'll move on to the Elite Ice Hockey League news. We've got some news going on here. There's quite a big bit of news coming out of Sheffield. The news from Sheffield just continues, doesn't it? Every week we have something different to talk about. And every week, Chris and I both sit there. We both sit there and go, we can't talk about Sheffield too much. We need to give the rest of the teams some airtime as well. But
we may as well rename this the Icing on the Steelers podcast.
It's just the thing is, I mean, if we'd started this properly last year, then we wouldn't have had so much to talk about with the Steelers. It's just the fact that everything's happening this year. So, for those of you who don't know, the Sheffield Steelers, their previous head coach and general manager, Paul Thompson, decided to step away from the team. Whether that was his decision or the team's decision, we don't know. We talked about that, 2 episodes ago?
Yeah.
Then Mark Matheson came in as the interim head coach. But then on October 9th, 2018, there was a big announcement by the Steelers. The Sheffield Steelers have appointed Stanley Cup champion Barrasso as new head coach. So I've got the EIHL news article here. I'll just give it a quick read for you. So the Sheffield Steelers have appointed Stanley Cup winner Tom Barrasso as their new head coach. The 53-year-old played in more than 750 NHL games during a 22-year career, which saw him ice for the Buffalo Sabres, Pittsburgh Penguins, Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, Carolina Hurricanes, and St. Louis Blues before retiring in 2003. Barrasso won 2 Stanley Cups as a member of the Penguins, as well as the Calder Trophy for NHL Rookie of the Year and the Vezina Trophy for NHL Goaltender of the Year during his debut season for the Buffalo Sabres in the 1983-84 season. It's probably good to point out that he won those Stanley Cups with Mario Lemieux, so there's the kind of caliber of player that he was with. The Boston, Massachusetts native was appointed goaltending coach for the Carolina Hurricanes in 2007, eventually becoming an assistant coach for the franchise. Barrasso moved to Europe in 2012, first as an assistant coach, I'll get there eventually, of KHL side Metalurg Magnitogorsk, before briefly joining HC Slovan Bratislava as goaltending coach a year later. His time in Bratislava was short, however, accepting the position of head coach with Italian side Valapicci, or Valpellice, I don't know, in November 2015. I gave it a try, that's all that matters. Going on to win the Italian Cup. A move to Asiago came the following summer, with Barrasso guiding the team to the Alps Hockey League Championship last season. So that's the kind of caliber you can expect from the team. Okay, bye, Chris. That's the kind of caliber you can expect from the team from the Sheffield Steelers. That's the coach that they have. Of course, his coaching debut was with the Sheffield Steelers in their game against the the Nottingham Panthers. Their first game was against the Nottingham Panthers this last Saturday the 13th, and like Chris said, it was a 5-2 victory, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, 5-2 victory for the Panthers against the Steelers. So not exactly the start that Barrasso might have wanted, but he didn't really have much time to get his team ready for the upcoming match against the Panthers. It was the only game that the Steelers played this last weekend. They had a pretty easy weekend as weekends go, to be honest. So, yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts about Tom Barrasso being added to the Sheffield Steelers bench?
Certainly a high caliber of head coach with
Yes.
plenty of experience behind him.
Sorry, I just want to jump in there. The only thing is, they throw out Stanley Cup champion, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's great. I mean, not many people win the Stanley Cup in their lifetime. He played with the likes of Mario Lemieux. He won the Vezina Trophy. So, sorry to jump in, Chris, but I think all of the accolades he's had at the highest level are as a player. I think that's important to keep in mind, not as a coach. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a high caliber name rather than a high caliber coach. But what I was going to say is I expect to see quite a few signings of the Steelers in the coming weeks as he tries to get his own team in.
Yes.
We do have a longer season now, which means that there is slightly more time than before.
Yeah.
To change things around. But I mean, we are going to get busy again towards that Christmas period, so he's not got long before the crucial period where they need to be on form.
And the problem is, like you're saying, the Sheffield Steelers, as you said in the standings, they're tied for the second most games played in the Elite League so far this season, and they're dead last. They've played 10 games, 3 wins, 7 losses. They've lost their last 4 games. So
yeah. Who on the people on the chat? What do you make of the new Steelers signing? I can see the chat's been quite active tonight. I'm conscious of going past everybody. So to Max and Kalesbro and Ben and James and other Max as well. He wants to hear my thoughts on the Lions versus Hawks. I was talking about that with you before we came on air.
You did. We shall have a quick chat about that towards the end of the podcast, I think.
We
Perfect time
shall.
To sort of discuss it in full detail.
Oliver asks, who's on your hat?
The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Fun fact, I got this hat in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It was like a family holiday a year or two ago, and we went into this like big shopping mall, and there was this sports hat shop, and I was like, oh, that's cool, but it was full of NBA hats, like billions of NBA hats. I was like, I'm kind of getting a little bit more into the NBA. I'm going to keep tabs on it this season more than most. And I thought,
it doesn't start for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, it starts in
Sunday.
3 days, doesn't it? Starts the
16th. Oh, does it? That's tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, what are you
I thought it was the 21st. My bad.
Oh, maybe it does. So... And then I saw this Mighty Ducks hat sitting in there, and I was like, I've got to have that. I've got to have that.
Fair enough.
And here we are.
Apparently in his press conference, thank you, Ben, I hadn't seen this, that he's going to keep the normal team the Steelers have.
Well, I mean, let's see how long that lasts. I mean, if they would lose their next 5 straight games, I highly doubt
quite.
That. I think from that, of course, I don't have the actual quote he had, but with going back to Tom Barrasso, we kind of went off a little bit there.
Slightly.
Like I said, he's played more than 750 NHL games, a 22-year playing career, is a goaltender, I might add. I don't know if it said that he was a goaltender. He was a goaltender. Oh, yeah, the Vezina Trophy. But
I was going to say, if he won the Vezina.
Yeah, but it's like, other than that, it doesn't specifically say that he was a goaltender.
Fair enough.
It's like, wow, 22 years like in the NHL as a forward, like that's impressive. But like being a backup goaltender is a lot easier than being a fourth line forward in some ways. Like in terms of the older you get, you can be a more serviceable goaltender the older you get compared to like a third or fourth line forward. I mean, that's up for debate, but that's what I think at this moment in time. But like I said, all of his stuff is as a player, which is great. But not all players transfer into great coaches, as we've seen with the best player of them all, Wayne Gretzky. You know, like he had a coaching job, he wasn't very good at it, the team didn't do very well, so they sacked him. You know, so he's been an assistant coach in the KHL. I mean, with Metalurg Magnitogorsk, that's a solid KHL team. Like, that's a championship winning KHL team. So he's obviously had some experience there, but you kind of notice that this is his first, like, well, I say it's his first proper head coaching job. He's only really gotten into head coaching in the last 3 years. Like, goaltending coach for the Hurricanes, that's a pretty awesome role. Assistant coach for the Hurricanes, that's cool. Assistant coach for Magnitogorsk, goaltender coach for Bratislava. Head coach, his first head coaching job is in Italy. And Italy isn't exactly one of those top-notch leagues. Like, if it said he'd been a head coach for a KHL team, I'd be like, whoa, okay. Wow, break down the doors. Perfect. Like, this will be great for the Steelers. However, I think this could be quite good for the Steelers. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Tom Barrasso being part of this team, hopefully they're going to have a bit more structure, and hopefully the controversy and the drama happening in Sheffield will lessen, because one, it means we can talk about other teams, and two...
Well, quite. We need to actually do that.
Yeah, and two, the problem is because Sheffield are one of the bigger, more popular teams in the EIHL, they've got a big fan base, especially in Sheffield where they are. You hear a lot of stuff, like you hear lots of stuff when something happens. It's kind of like just chucking a match on like an oil slick, and then it like trailing along. Like, it goes through loads of different people until it like culminates with the league writing news articles about it, and every single like media outlet in the league or independent YouTubers talking about it on their podcasts. And it's just like there's a lot been going on. I hope that Tom Barrasso gives the Steelers the consistency that they need, you know?
Yeah.
I think, like Ben said, there's the opportunity that the entire team stays together and he doesn't make any changes. Like we just said, I think we need to wait and see. Like, if he loses the next 5 games, he stays at the bottom of the league, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Although it will be very interesting if that did happen. Like, just how crazy that would be, that one of the sort of highest, one of the most popular teams, one of the teams that has the bigger player budgets, falling so far down the league is actually quite shocking, you know?
Can you imagine if an arena team didn't even make the playoffs?
Exactly. Like, how ridiculous would that be?
Yeah.
But like, whilst it's still very early on in the season, that's a potential situation right now.
Well, I mean, you say it's early on, but Panthers have played 12 games. They're already 20% through.
Fair. Well,
so
I'd still call that like relatively early, though.
Yeah, relatively early, yeah. But we're not in like the opening weekend anymore, are we?
I mean, very true. But if I told you, Chris, on our first podcast that we did of this, the Steelers are going to be 3-7 in their first 10 games of the season, you'd be like, no, they're not. I mean, of course, Robert Dowd being injured has a big part to play in that.
Yes.
Like, him being out, one of the important points that the Steelers Twitter wanted to mention before or during the game on Saturday against the Panthers was they had a very depleted roster. And I think that did play into it to an extent. They had the problem that they basically were missing their first forward line, or enough players to make their first forward line. I can't remember exactly who was out. I believe Owens was out, Dowd was out, and one other player. Was it McGrath? I think McGrath was out as well. Then Brandon Whistle didn't play for ages. They were rolling 3 lines in that game, which really isn't good. So the Sheffield Steelers, Mark Matheson goes back to just being an assistant coach and player. He's not the interim head coach anymore. Lawrence, that's it. Thank you, Max. It'll be very interesting to see, once again, what happens with this. We say this every single week because we can never predict what's happening next, and then something else happens, and then we're like, now I've got to talk about this. So
yeah, and it always happens on a Monday.
Yeah, exactly. I hope things go a little bit quieter in Sheffield for the next few weeks, purely for the fact that it will mean that they'll hopefully do a little bit better in the league, and there won't be a reason for us to talk so much about them. I don't mind talking about them.
Should we move on, because we've spoken about them for 15 minutes again this week?
Let's do it. Okay, so Sheffield Steelers, new head coach, looks pretty good, but his main accolades are as a player. Let's see how he does. Okay, so the next piece of information I would like to talk about is the Coventry Blaze. The Coventry Blaze have decided to extend forward Dylan Lawrence's deal until the end of the season. I'll just read a quick bit out of the Elite Ice Hockey League thingamabob, the news article, that's what I mean. The 23-year-old Dylan Lawrence joined the Blaze during the summer on a trial basis, going on to appear in 6 Elite League and 4 Challenge Cup games to date. Blaze head coach Danny Stewart was quoted saying, "Dylan has come in and brought into his role without a second thought." So the Toronto native spent last season with the Edinburgh Capitals, because that went well, before spending the summer in the AHL with Melbourne Ice, scoring 17 goals and 33 points in 21 games. So Dylan Lawrence is staying with the Coventry Blaze. Sounds pretty good to me. What are his stats for this season? That's something I want to know.
I would be able to tell you, but Elite Prospects is being the slowest thing on earth.
Okay. I'll take a look.
And I've got Alexander Bolduc's stats up, so it doesn't want to change.
Wow. Okay. Let me just let me find him. So, Chris, what do you think about this extension while I try and find this?
I think they need players who know that they're going to stay.
Yep.
They certainly haven't had the greatest of time of it recently, especially that loss over the weekend. I think, as you said, they've got an injury to Ross Venus, hoping to lean on his skill a bit. They've got to be careful not to rely too much on one player.
Yes, I agree.
But on the face of it, it seems like it's a decent extension.
Yeah, I mean, how did Coventry do again? Well, in the standings, they're currently 5th place with 4 wins, 3 losses, and an OTL loss in 8 games.
They had that loss. Hang on, I'll bring it up again. So they had they beat. To be fair, they beat Manchester last night.
Yeah, exactly. So they're getting wins.
Yeah, I swear they had a defeat. Was that on? No, they only. Okay, that was my mistake. So yeah, they are getting those. They are getting those wins. That, as I said, that game against Manchester.
Okay. Update. Elite Prospects says that after 8 regular season games and 4 cup games, he has 0 points.
That's why he doesn't come up on this game sheet from the game on against Manchester.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was gonna censor that. I was gonna see his stats and assume that he'd picked up like a point every 2 games, almost a point per game, and think, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, he's putting up points for the team. However, he hasn't yet. Okay, so I will preface this by saying I don't really know the Coventry Blazers line combinations so far this season. It's one of the teams that I haven't really followed as much as some of the others. However, I mean, if Dylan Lawrence has been playing in a top 6 role and he hasn't scored any points so far, then I'm not quite sure why this has happened. Is it a case of the coach Danny Stewart has thought he just needs that one lucky bounce or that one lucky shot, that one chance, and then the floodgates will open? That does happen with players, so maybe. Or if he's playing in the bottom 6 and he's doing all the intangibles right, then this is a good signing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if they're hoping to lean on him and he's in the bottom 6, then he's there for the wrong reason.
Well, yeah, very true. But it's a very interesting situation.
It is.
So he's been signed until the end of the season. I assume he'll have at least 1 point by the end of the season.
I would hope so.
You would hope so, especially as a forward, I believe. Is he a forward? Yeah, forward. Yeah, forward Dylan Lawrence. So, yes. Dylan Lawrence has joined, remaining with the Coventry Blaze for the end of the season. I mean, if Coventry start to pick up the pace and start to go on a bit of a winning streak here, I assume we can credit Lawrence maybe picking up some points, going on a bit of a point streak himself. As one of the
I would say so.
Primary causes. Well, I guess we'll have to see how he does. I mean, he spent last year with Edinburgh, so he hasn't exactly had the best experience in the Elite League so far. Let's hope he does well. I mean, he's obviously impressed the head coach enough. So.
And one more signing this week as well.
Yes. Chris, would you like to take us through that signing? Yes, it was literally a couple of hours ago.
Yes, the Nottingham Panthers have signed Alexander Bolduc He's played 65 NHL games. He most recently played in the DEL, which obviously is where Rich Chernomaz has come from. In the NHL, he's played for Arizona, and I was going to say Phoenix then, but obviously that's the same side.
It is.
And Vancouver. He then went over to Colnahay, and he was an assistant captain there last season with 3 points in 14 games. He's not the biggest point scorer, must be honest.
That was primarily due to the fact that he spent quite a lot of the year injured last year, from what I heard.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, he was just under a point per game in the AHL.
Yeah, and he served captaincy and alternate captaincy roles while playing in the AHL. Would you like to know a fun fact, though, that I saw like about an hour before we started?
Go on, then.
It turns out that Bolduc is a childhood friend of Panthers forward Mark Hurtubise. So potentially Hurtubise
maybe
had a
Hurtubise,
hand.
yeah.
Exactly, he might have had a hand in getting Bolduc onto the team. So Rick Chernomaz, of course, spent some time in the DEL. Last season he was in the DEL and he saw Bolduc play, and he was obviously impressed with the way that Bolduc played and wanted to bring him over. Of course, John Roll for the Nottingham Panthers has been injured for a while, and he'll continue to be injured for the next few weeks or so. The only thing is, I assume this means that Tyler Van Cleef isn't going to be offered a contract to the end of the season. Of course, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I mean, we said, didn't we, that if we were going to look at the things that the Panthers needed, another forward wouldn't be one of them.
Yes, I mean, they've got enough firepower. The problem is the back end is... Especially on Sundays.
You just can't play Sunday.
No, exactly. So Bolduc, I believe he also has KHL experience. Don't quote
me on VHL.
That. What's that?
And VHL.
Yes, exactly. So Bolduc, Rick Chernomaz has been very has praised the fact that Bolduc can play all three forward positions quite well. So I'll be interested personally to see how that goes, to see if Bolduc actually helps the situation, if he adds another veteran voice in the locker room, if he kind of helps put the younger players in check when they're taking stupid penalties, because we know that the Nottingham Panthers are brilliant at taking awful penalties so far this season and really biting themselves in the arse, to be honest. So, yes, another signing from Rick Chernomaz's side. We'll have to see how this impacts the team. I mean, if he's a strong two-way player and he plays well in the defensive end of the ice, then this will help the Panthers quite well. However, from the stats that I've seen, he seems more like a crash-to-the-net kind of guy than a 200-foot player, if you know what I mean. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll talk about the upcoming fixtures at the end of this section.
Yeah.
But, well, we're getting quite close to the end of the EIHL
final piece
section.
of Elite League news.
The final piece of news, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a big announcement to make here on the Icing on the Skate podcast.
The enormously large penny had very finally dropped.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the unthinkable happened.
It did.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
You know how nearly every single Elite Ice Hockey League team has a webcast to support their fans. But there's two teams that have forgotten or decided not to join the 21st century. One of them being Guildford. They're a smaller team. Smaller team, smaller rink, I understand. And then there's the Nottingham Panthers, who decided, no, we can't have a webcast because it will affect attendance. But ladies and gentlemen, something changed on Saturday. With the sold-out game between the Nottingham Panthers and the Sheffield Steelers at Nottingham Ice Arena, Gary Moran decided to wake up. The Nottingham Panthers organisation, a switch flicked in their heads, and they thought, hang on a minute, with a sold-out venue and people still wanting to come, we can make some extra revenue by having a webcast.
For one night only.
For one night only. So they did. So they did, ladies and gentlemen. We had a webcast for Nottingham Panthers hockey. For the first time in forever. We had it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. We've achieved greatness.
Let's just be completely correct here. They did do webcasts of like the Continental Cup final.
I don't care. That's not
All
no.
right.
That's
All right.
not
You're
part of the
counting.
league.
Okay.
That's
All right. You're counting league.
that's
Right.
like the
Okay. Yeah.
bonus features on the second DVD that you get. You know, that's like special features. And then you get like director's commentary and all that stuff. No, we wanted a webcast, and we finally got one. I mean, chances are we're never going to get another webcast ever again. But
Unless they sell out again.
the fact that we got one, I can die a happy man, Chris. We got one. We did it, lads. We did it.
Yeah.
They probably watched the
Yeah.
stream and thought, ah, shit, we should probably go and put on a
It's
webcast.
because they saw about the success of the Lions webcasts.
There you
That's
go.
what it.
See, I even plugged you on Twitter, Chris. See, I'm a nice person.
Yeah, you did. You did. They haven't sent me an email yet though.
Wow.
So
Just give them time. They're trying to figure out the costs of it, you know?
yeah.
So, yes, webcast for the Nottingham Panthers. If anybody from the Nottingham Panthers organisation is listening in, which I highly doubt you are, but if you are, I want another webcast. I'm not travelling 3 hours, two there, and then 3 hours back every single weekend just to watch you lose on a Sunday. So,
Did anybody here watch the webcast?
yes.
And hear Gary Moran's interview at the second period?
Yes, that's a good talking point. I will admit I didn't because I was busy during the second intermission and I saw Gary Moran and I got kind of scared, so I muted it. So
yes, Moran apparently. I mean, I didn't hear it direct. I've heard this through what people have told me, that he says that the Panthers don't support the Lions because of the way the building is set up and the fact that the Panthers are tenants and they pay their money. The Panthers also apparently publicise the Nottingham Lions wherever they can.
No, they can't.
But that's,
no, they don't.
But
that's a lie.
That's the only link that the two teams have.
I think Gary Moran's getting a bit forgetful in his old age. He probably he's probably like, yeah, we do loads, and it's like, oh, hang on a minute, no, we don't.
Well, hopefully, Shernamaz will start to have some kind of dealing with the Lions. I know that it might be potentially sort of on the table, but yeah. So that's what I found interesting, is the fact that apparently the Panthers publicised the Lions.
But more importantly, Chris, we got a webcast.
We did.
And we got to see Gary Moran say those words. And that's more important than anything, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I suspect that may become a regular thing on sold-out games. Of course, we only ever sell out against the Steelers, so the next one is likely to be Boxing Day.
Which, I mean, I'm happy to pay. Like, I'm happy to pay to watch. I'm happy to pay a tenner to watch Panthers games. Because that's going to cost me a lot less than travelling up there every weekend.
Yeah.
You know? And it will take a lot less time. Because all I have to do is sit down on my arse, put it in the computer, and watch. You know? Like, get on it, Panthers TV. You'll make me a very happy human being. So,
what also got me is the fact that they made the decision so late that they had the Steelers commentator commentating on the Panthers webcast.
I mean, Jonathan Fernley, granted, is a solid commentator. I mean, out of the webcasts, he's probably one of the best. I mean, there are some pretty bad ones in the webcast community. I quite like the Belfast ones. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but I think
Belfast have theirs on the BBC Sport website. Why can't every team get in on that?
Exactly. Like I think that's a topic for maybe
that's another debate. Yeah.
Like, best webcast commentators, because I know my worst at the moment. And we'll go into that maybe either later or in another episode. Max,
I think that's going to need more of a debate, so I think that might be a next week episode. So right, Elite League fixtures then.
Sure.
Next week on Wednesday, Sheffield against Fife. On Friday, Glasgow, Nottingham and Milton Keynes, Belfast. On Saturday, Milton Keynes, Belfast again, Cardiff, Sheffield, Manchester, Dundee, Glasgow, Coventry and Fife, Nottingham. On Sunday, Cardiff, Fife, Sheffield, Manchester, Dundee, Nottingham, Guildford, Belfast. Those are in the Elite League. In the Challenge Cup, there are the two games, Glasgow against Dundee, that is tomorrow, and Coventry against Milton Keynes on Sunday.
Sounds like some very good matchups there. I'm going to be very interested to see how the Fife-Sheffield game goes on Wednesday. That's a league game, right?
5 Sheffield, yes.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting because I mean,
Mm.
Sheffield want to get back on their winning streak, and Fife, I mean, they've won 6 straight.
Yeah.
They've got the longest winning streak at the moment in the league. So Belfast is short behind with 5, and Cardiff is shorter behind with 4. But that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So that'll be very interesting. Right. So shall we move on to our topic
NHL.
No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. My bad.
Hey.
My bad. I missed it. My bad.
So this is so we like to give each section like hockey related names. Was that was the first period, right? That we just did. The EIHL stuff was kind of like the first period.
Yeah.
Now we've got the play under review, which is our debate topic. So, play under review. Let us know what you think of the name. If you think it's awful, let us know. If you think it's good, let us know.
Yes. So the debate this week is around junior hockey. Now, I brought this to Oddman's attention Saturday night.
Yes, you did, and I've had several people, including the Hockey Voice on Twitter, shout out to you, also bringing this to my attention. So, on Saturday the 13th of October, about 5:30 was the face-off. The under-13s took to the ice. The Manchester Storm under-13s won team, so they're A team, and the Billingham Stars under-13 team took to the ice. Doesn't exactly say. Well, I think Manchester was the home team.
No, Billingham.
Billingham was the home team. Excuse me. Oh, how rude of me. So, Manchester, of course, an EIHL team. The Billingham Stars are a League One team. With the what's it called? They're the team that I helped commentate you with, wasn't it? Was it Billingham against the Lions? Yes, it was.
Yeah. An EIHL team. Yeah.
EIHL. That's the one I was looking for. I was trying to think of the acronym. So, you know how like most hockey games, like I mean, if you could get like a 3-2 game or like a 5-6 game, like a really high scoring like 7-6 game.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was quite rough, but also hilarious. So the Manchester Storm, they managed to beat the Billingham Stars, which, get those 2 points in the books. Good job. But it was the scoreline that was a bit of a problem here for the Billingham Stars. The scoreline... Are you ready for this, ladies and gents? The Manchester Storm under-13s 1 team beat the Billingham Stars under-13 team 66-0. 66-0. I'm not stuttering. 66-0.
Yeah.
If you want to know a few more of the stats in the game, the shots on the game...
Oh, that was just...
This is hilarious. The shots in the game, 151 shots to the Manchester Storm, 0 to Billingham. Billingham did not take a single shot in the entire game.
Ben and Oliver, your reaction is exactly what ours was when I first read it.
And do you want to know the really interesting thing? There were only 4 penalty minutes in the game. And 2 of them were against Manchester.
Yeah, do you know, on that penalty that Manchester conceded, they scored 5 short-handed goals in that 2-minute power play.
It's ridiculous. So, the Billingham Stars under-13s team, the only stat that they recorded was 2 penalty minutes. Not a goal, not an assist, not even a shot on goal, but 2 penalty minutes.
Ben says how many hat-tricks. Not sure on the total amount of hat-tricks. One player scored 15 goals, which is 5 hat-tricks in himself. I have them
here for you. So,
oh dear.
Josh Crawley, number 10, scored 15 goals, which is 5 hat-tricks. And he also notched a nice 7 assists to the game as well.
Just a casual 22-point game for him.
Casual. Curtis Balmanis, 12 goals. That's 4 hat-tricks. He got himself an assist as well. You gotta try and balance it out a little bit. And Jake Kellett scored 11 goals. And that's almost 4 hat-tricks. He got himself 6 assists as well. So, that balances out quite nicely. I just want to bring something else to the attention of the listeners here today.
Oh, blimey.
There were 2 players on the Manchester Storm roster that didn't score a goal in this game.
Was that the 2 netminders?
Yes. Every single player that skated scored at least 1 goal.
Yeah,
There was
I know.
every single player had at least had at least 2 points in the game as well.
Yeah.
How ridiculous is that?
Well, this is the thing with junior hockey, and this is obviously what we're getting onto in our debate,
Yes.
is what can be done to help junior hockey,
Get some
because
better netminders for the Billingham Stars. There's a start.
but it's so difficult to. I mean, you've seen when you've come to the Panthers games, like when you get the juniors playing, there is occasionally one player who is so much better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think potentially that might have been what happened here. But
Well, there were 3 players that scored double-digit goals. So yeah, there were 3 players that were better than everyone else.
it's just
Could you imagine
absolutely.
walking into high school the next day and going like, "So how was your hockey game?" "Yeah, scored 22 points."
To answer the question of how Andy, how many skaters did Billingham had? They had 12 skaters and 2 netminders.
Yes.
Which, okay, you think is slightly short bench. Bear in mind, under 13s, they don't play 20s, they play 15s.
Yes, and
I'm sure they play 15s.
I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Yes,
8.
they play 15s.
Yeah, and the Manchester Storm only had 10 skaters.
Yeah.
And 2 netminders.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And you're there just like, so what? I mean, they scored 19 seconds in, then 30, then they were 3-0 up inside the first 51 seconds.
Well, yeah, number 71 scored the first 4 goals of the game just over 2 minutes in.
Just over 2 minutes.
Oh, they scored a short-handed goal as well. Oh, they scored loads of short-handed goals.
So, I mean, they scored 5 short-handed goals in the 1 penalty that they took.
Yeah. And they scored a power play goal just to make sure.
Yeah. But, like, some of these goals, they're 7 seconds apart. They win the face-off, just skate in, shoot and score.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they win the face-off again, skate in, shoot and score.
I'm not going to lie, I would have loved to have been at that game. Just to see if they're all the Billingham parents like sitting there in the stands, just like maybe he should try football. Just like the netminder, just going like, our kid wasn't made for this.
Yeah. So the question is, how do you help junior hockey progress?
Yeah.
The leagues are really quite small as they are. They're only like 5 and 6 team leagues.
Yeah.
And it's just
there needs to be more consistency. You know,
yeah.
like for example, the one thing we've got is, just looking at the names of the teams, you've got the Manchester Storm. They're an affiliate of an Elite League team.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Billingham Stars, who are an affiliate of an NIHL team.
In that league, Sutton, NIHL, Sheffield, NIHL, Whitley, NIHL, Solihull, NIHL, and Billingham, NIHL. You've got NIHL teams who have just got a junior section, and then you've got an Elite League team who have got their, who have got money to put into it. I mean, just look at the recent fixtures. So Manchester won by 20 goals to 1. The next weekend, they won by 22 goals to 1. Then they won 66-0. They've scored 146 goals in 5 games, and they've only conceded 4. What do you do about junior hockey in this country?
Well, the problem is, and I think somebody brought up, Max Springer. Hey, buddy, how's it going, mate? It turns out that there's been a dispute between the English Ice Hockey Association and the Manchester Storm Academy. Of course, this is going off what Max is saying. Whether it's 100% accurate, I don't know. Just want to point out there, just in case anybody uses that word as gospel. So essentially, the Storm lost a 1 playoff game last year, so they didn't get promoted to the next division up. But like we can see, like you just mentioned, their stats, they're clearly way too good for the Division 2 that they're currently in. So the junior system, I think what they should do is, if there's... Okay, so there's a couple of scenarios I could see here. One, if you're going to do with all, like, say, under 13 league, get all the players, or get all the teams in the Elite Ice Hockey League to have an under 13s team, put them in a league. sorted. Right, so that takes the Manchester Storm out of this league, where they're scoring 140 goals in 5 games, and sticks them with academies that have the similar sort of funding as the one that they have, you know? Of course, we've also got the problem that not every single EIHL team probably has an under-13s team, but that just requires them to put some money where their mouth is. And what have we learnt about the Elite League over the last few years? Like, if they don't have to spend the money, most of the teams won't, because they're not turning that much of a profit, if a profit anyway. I think this takes, like, what I could imagine is it would be like someone wins the lottery and wins millions and millions of pounds and decides, I want to put it into ice hockey, and then sets up all these leagues. With the current state of it, that's what it's going to take in order to set this up. Like, for example, you want all the NIHL teams, their under-13 teams should be in the same league. All the Elite League teams, under-13 teams, they should be in their own league.
But the problem with that is that, I mean, as you said, the Elite League teams don't all have an academy. Okay, let's just take the Panthers as the example. The natural thing from anyone on the outside who doesn't know it, and I confess that this is what I was like before I started at the Lions, I thought, right, you work through the juniors, you go to the Lions, and then you feed into the Panthers.
And that's what I thought before I came and visited.
That's what I thought, but no, they are completely separate.
Yeah.
You can go all the way through the juniors and you play for the Lions.
Yeah.
And there's no communication. The Panthers, staff don't come and look at games. And I mean, a lot of the players that play in the NIHL, they're either youngsters looking for a pro contract.
Yep.
And they are dictated, a lot of the squads of the team are dictated by, for example, quite a lot of the Lions players are players around the country who have come to Nottingham universities.
Exactly, yeah.
And that will be the same up north with Newcastle and Whitley. It will be the same over in the Birmingham area with Solihull.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got players who play for fun or are at the end of their career who are just keeping the legs moving.
Yeah.
As I say, playing for fun and just earning a little bit. So it's, there's no clear link between all of them. I mean, some of the teams have players on two-way contracts. So if they're not needed by the Elite League team, they'll play in and, again, keep the legs moving. But again...
you mentioned, for example, I think we talked about it last season, they'll have players that will be on two-way contracts. But like, for example, if it's a Panthers player, they won't send the Panthers player to the Nottingham Lions. They'll send them to like a team halfway across the country. Yeah,
Swindon, usually.
They'll send them like ages away. When they've literally got a team right across the hallway. That's a problem. Like the problem is with the junior system in the UK, because we don't want to forget like the Cardiff junior teams and the Belfast junior teams. There's the English Ice Hockey Association is a governing body, but it's also not, in a sense. Like, they don't really have a huge amount of power because hockey isn't a huge sport. In this country. There's a problem with nobody's really that interested in sorting this problem out, so it won't get sorted out. Like, it's not a necessity to sort this out. Like, you don't have... If every single GM in the Elite League said, we need to sort out this system, or somebody needs to come and sort out this system, it would get sorted.
Yeah.
But it doesn't... Like, for example, it doesn't concern them. It's not their problem. Like, they're sitting there going, we've got our own team to deal with, which... In a sense, I understand. Like I understand that the teams want, like, from looking at it from their perspective, they've got their own team to worry about. I'll take Sheffield as another example. They're not going to worry about their junior teams when they're going 3-7-0 in the Elite League.
But this is one. I think one thing. I mean, we could talk about this all night, so we best not get too carried away. But this isn't just an ice hockey thing. If you look at the Premier League, look how many players in the Premier League have come through academies and things like that. They don't. They just buy the better players for instant results rather than developing the junior system. It's getting better now, but it's the same with the Elite League teams, especially when you've got teams where the fans demand trophies pretty much every season. You're going to just get players in who you think are just going to deliver you trophies straight away. You're not going, there's no rebuild stage like there is in the NHL. There's no draft to force youngsters through like there is in the NHL.
Do you know what I think would be a good idea? I think they should set up an NCAA style league in the UK. So hear me out. This will kind of be like the final idea I'll present, and we'll hear from you, Chris, and then we'll move on. Like you said, we can talk about this all day.
We could do. It's already 8 o'clock.
Exactly. So there are university teams out there.
Yes, there are.
Like, I believe, is it the Nottingham Outlaws?
So Nottingham Trent and Nottingham University have a team. They have a varsity. You've then got rec hockey and university hockey in Nottingham as well.
So what I would suggest is have a league of a national collegiate athletic association for the universities around the UK. Then, if those players are good, like for example, we know like most players at uni, they're either playing because they want to try and create a career in it, or because it's like it's something fun to do and they want to try it. Like you're gonna have varying levels of talent on a university roster. Like I get that, but why not have the prize of like if you play well enough, like maybe they have like a finals weekend kind of thing. And then all the general managers and all of the scouts from the Elite League have to go and watch. It becomes mandatory to go and watch. And then, if they see players that they like, they can sign them up.
Yeah, but it's like Max says. I mean, there's both Maxes. There is a British University Ice Hockey Association. There is a league.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But like Max says, there's people in it who can barely skate. I think because... I mean, Max, I mean, you'll know better than I will, but I'm suspecting that there's so few players that you're pretty much guaranteed to play no matter how well you can skate. And like Max also says, there isn't rinks in every, town and everything for this. So it's, like you say, we could talk about it all night, but it's something that needs looking at.
I do like the idea that Andy mentioned of maybe like a showcase weekend, like for all the like say each university shortlists like 3 players from their roster that they're like, these are the best players we have on our roster. They get to go, like the rookie showcases in the NHL and stuff.
Yeah,
like the combines. The combines.
Yeah,
maybe do something like that at the National Ice Arena or the Fly DSA Arena.
I think the biggest,
because then that could give people it could give players something to strive for. When you're playing hockey in this country, you're doing it because you want to. You're not doing it so you can become an Elite League player. If that happens, then great. But like every kid in North America, they play hockey because they want to be like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin, Like we don't have those figureheads.
Yeah.
Because we don't have players we don't have many players spending a huge amount of time with one team because they're signing 1-year contracts every year.
I think in everything, and obviously this is the last I'll say on it.
Yeah.
It all comes down to money again. If there was the money to employ people full-time to make this their pure thing, eventually you'd see it come through. But there isn't the money, there isn't the numbers, there's just not the appeal of it as there is over there. And I don't think it's ever going to get to a perfect system. I think you've got to have quite a bit of luck to be with the right team, have the...
Yeah.
I want to kind of say right parents, but parents who are willing to drive you potentially an hour each way to get to the decent team for training late on a Tuesday after school and
I think
and
this
all
could
of
be
that.
an interesting topic to come back to next week.
Yes, I think it will.
Yeah,
yes.
I think we can discuss this a little in more detail next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our kind of topic of the week. It's quite an interesting topic.
The chatter's lit up. I mean, yeah, we could talk about it for another hour.
Exactly,
I mean, Andy, you make valid points, and we're not ignoring you. We just haven't got the time to go through them.
Exactly. So, from the EIHL and the 66-0 victory Manchester Storm under 13s, we move to the National Hockey League. Of course we do. So, the National Hockey League, of course, we are about 6 games into the regular season for some teams.
Yeah.
Most teams are about 6 games into the season.
Yeah, something along those lines.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are still doing really well.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't you know it?
They just beat the defending Stanley Cup champions a couple of nights ago, 4-2. Against so they've done quite well. 10 points in 6 games. Austin Matthews and what's his name, Morgan Riley, just like torching up the place. Which is crazy.
Matthews! Didn't I see Matthews is on for like a 153 goal season or something if he carries on at this rate?
10 goals in 6 games so far.
Yeah, he's on for something like a 150 goal season.
Bearing in mind his rookie season, he scored 40 goals.
Yeah.
He's already a quarter of the way there. And we're not even a 10th of the way into the season.
Yeah, I know.
How ridiculous is that?
Very, but it's also amazing at the same time.
He will likely slow down, or there'll be an injury at some point down the road. Like, typical hockey stuff gets in the way. Otherwise, there would be a player scoring 100 goals every single season.
Yes, of course.
It's just the way it goes. So, I'll just run through the standings so far. I'll go through the league. If you want to look at divisions and stuff, go look at them yourself. So, I'm going to run down the league. So,
top of the league,
we have the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Top of the league.
Chris is happy because this is the most successful they've been in like half a decade.
Yeah, something like that. I wasn't even around. My parents weren't even born when Toronto last won the cup.
So, the Toronto Maple Leafs are leading the NHL with 10 points in 6 games, record of 5-1-0. The Carolina Hurricanes and the Anaheim Ducks both have a record of 4-1-1 for 9 points to take second and third. Then we have 3 teams with 8 points, Boston, Nashville, and Chicago. Chicago, their first 5 games of the season, every single game has gone to overtime. That's ridiculous. And they've managed to win 3 of them, so that's pretty helpful. So, Boston, Nashville, Chicago all on 8 points. 7 points, Colorado with a record of 3-1-1. New Jersey, Dallas, Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Buffalo and Columbus all on 6 points. Then we have Pittsburgh, Montreal, Washington, LA, Ottawa, San Jose on 5 points. Tampa Bay, the Islanders, Minnesota, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Vegas on 4 points. Then we have the Edmonton Oilers, who beat my Rangers on Saturday. Thanks for that. It was a close game, though, to be fair.
Was that your DraftKings messed up again by any chance?
No, I ran out of money on DraftKings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't do too well in my last few. I got like 23rd in my last few. I was like, damn it! I literally picked Carter Hutton in one of them, and that night he gave up like 4 goals in the first 2 periods.
Yeah.
Like, for fuck's sake. But it's always the guys that I pick. That night they decide to have a really awful night. So with 2 points we have Edmonton and the Arizona Coyotes and the New York Rangers and Detroit. And then down in 31st place with a record of 2 losses and 1 overtime loss, the Florida Panthers with 1 point.
Yeah, how are you doing down there at the bottom? I mean, I'm getting a bit of vertigo up here, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, it's a rebuild, you know. I mean, I wasn't expecting the Rangers to do well. I'm just going to preface this conversation by saying I was expecting the Rangers to suck this year because we don't really have many, quote, NHL caliber players. We have a lot of prospects and a lot of fringe NHL players on the roster at the moment. We have some good guys on the roster, but we've gone young and we've gone inexperienced so that they kind of grow together as a unit, I think. They've made it close against quite a lot of teams. Edmonton, who have struggled so far this year, 1 goal differential. Nashville, very close. The only real blowout game they've had was against Carolina, but they also put up 6 goals in that game, I believe, 5 or 6 goals. So, you know, I understand that we're 29th or tied second from bottom.
Yeah, but you're still only 6 games in.
Exactly.
So.
Well, we're 5 games in, but
5.
I mean, if we get the first overall pick this year, and then Igor Sestyorkin comes over from the KHL, who is one of the best one of the best goaltenders outside of the NHL, plays for, you guessed it, SKA St. Petersburg. And he basically has a shutout every other game. I think it would be tremendous. Speaking of which, SK St. Petersburg just won their game against Spartak Moscow in
I was about to say, there's 2 KHL games. Well, they're both finished now, actually.
Yeah, SK St. Petersburg, they were 2-1 down in that game. So,
yeah.
yeah.
After extra time.
Indeed. So those are the league standings as of this moment. New Jersey, I think. Yep, New Jersey currently have the best goal difference of +10. They are undefeated. They've only played 3 games. And Kyle Palmieri has 6 goals in 3 games already. He's doing very well for himself. And down the bottom, Detroit has the worst goal difference of -12. They got beaten 8-2 by Boston in their last game. that Pasternak, Marchand, Bergeron line has combined for like 60 points in the last 3 games. They are playing so well together. So let's have a little bit of a chat about the Toronto Maple Leafs, shall we, Chris? I mean, you're going to be loving this.
At the moment, yes. No doubt it will all go downhill in Game 7 of the first round to Boston.
Yeah,
but...
you know. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, whilst they're sitting at the top of the league, and of course I can imagine every single sports outlet site from every single Canadian outlet is talking about the Maple Leafs at the moment, because they've been doing that since Tavares signed. We're not jumping on the bandwagon, ladies and gents. There's just some interesting talking points here. So Morgan Riley has had the best start of a defenseman since Bobby Orr, by the sounds of it, which is some pretty high company to be in. And Austin Matthews has been breaking all sorts of records, tying Wayne Gretzky's type records.
Yeah, I think Austin Matthews, I think, is playing in a soccer goal.
Well, I think
the way he's been putting them in.
I think Austin Matthews has been part of that Manchester Storm team playing the Billingham Stars.
Was he that guy that scored 15? That makes sense.
He just can't stop scoring goals. If I take a look at the stats so far, Frederick Anderson with 4 wins on the season. Okay, so the goals per game, the league average is 3.09. Toronto have 4.83. They're scoring 4 goals a game, which they kind of need
Almost
to.
5 goals a game.
Yeah, which they kind of need to because the defense sucks. But, I mean, Morgan Riley, he's had a fantastic start to the season. I guess the question is that I'd like to pass to you, Chris, and I feel like you'll know a little bit more about this topic than, say, some of the others because you follow Toronto. Do you think that this dominance by the Toronto Maple Leafs will continue for an extended period of time? Or is it just a fast start with some new players and a chip on their shoulder after losing another Game 7 at the end of the playoffs last year? Do you think this is just a fast start and eventually when teams start to look at how they play their game, teams become more comfortable and have more film on how they play, will they come a bit more back down to earth, especially the likes of Austin Matthews and Morgan Riley?
I think they will come back down to earth a bit. I do think they'll make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think they're going to go through creaming the league, scoring 5 goals a game for 82 games and, clinching the precedence. I think once teams do start to know how to play, but I think that's going to take time because the teams are going to have to play them to watch the footage back. And obviously it's all well and good saying, oh, you need to do this, but until you've actually played them and you've played against the speed and the puck movement, it's going to take the first game for teams to know what they're doing. I mean, Montreal have played quite a few now and they still can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously, when they come up against other really good teams, I mean, they had that game against Chicago, that 7-6 game.
Yeah.
And they've beaten the defending champions, so it is looking good.
Yeah, I mean the topic that everybody brings up, and I have also brought this up because I think it is quite relevant, is the fact that their defense sucks. Apart from Morgan Riley, I mean, Ron Hainsey is playing first pair minutes. He's more of a third pair defenseman.
They need to sort out, because there's all this stuff going around about Nylander, but they just need more defensemen.
Yes, they don't need more. They need a higher caliber.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I can very well imagine that if the Maple Leafs keep up this sort of high caliber of play, high scoring game, I would very much imagine that at the trade deadline, they trade for a defenseman. I don't know who they would trade.
Yeah.
Of course, we're jumping way ahead in the future.
Of course, yeah.
But I very much think that The Toronto Maple Leafs, like you said, I think Austin Matthews will keep a very solid pace. I don't think it will be 10 points in 6 games kind of pace. No. The thing is, they've got that great 1-2 punch of Matthews then Tavares. Tavares has already scored a hat-trick so far this season. Like, we can't forget that. Mitch Marner had a bit of a slow start in the first couple of games, but he's really picked it up as well. Like, this team is showing...
Kapanen as well.
Yeah.
On that line.
Exactly. And they've put Kasperi Kapanen up on the right wing, I think, with Matthews. It's Marner, Matthews, and Kapanen. He's been scoring goals. So he's having the best sort of play of his career. He's taken a bit of a while to make it to an NHL roster full-time. Now he's playing with one of the best young guys in the league. And he's basically the Curie to Matthews, Wayne Gretzky at the moment.
I mean, you're a defenseman. You're against Toronto, and you're thinking, oh, finally that top line's gone, and then on comes Tavares. You're like, oh.
And then Tavares' line goes, and you think, oh, okay, this is good. And then Nazem Kadri comes on, who's a very serviceable second line center.
So unless you've got like a really solid defensive 6, they're gonna pick a hole for you at some point.
I would be very interested to see how they match up against a Nashville or a San Jose.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those games.
Like you mentioned with the with coming up against a strong top 6 team, those are some teams that have some strong defensive cores. Nashville especially, even like a Carolina. Carolina have always had a pretty underrated defensive group because they've been young. And now they've made a couple of moves. They've brought in Dougie Hamilton as well, who's been very good for them. They've only dropped 3 points so far this season, with 1 regulation loss, which happened last night against Winnipeg, and an overtime loss. So they've played really well. I'd be interested to see a Toronto-Carolina game, just to see, like, is it a case of they can overpower those strong defenses, or when you have the caliber of player up and down your defensive group to be able to shut down the top players. Because I can imagine when the Maple Leafs get to the playoffs, the tactic will be... I say when. I don't say if. I say when the Maple Leafs, because they will.
Yeah, I think they will make the playoffs.
I think they will make the playoffs. Whether it's like the first seed in their division, I'm not quite sure. But I could very much imagine that the teams would go into the video rooms, they'd sit down with the players, or the defensemen especially, and go, right, our main job, we need to shut down Matthews, shut down Marner, and shut down John Tavares. If you shut down those 3, then you have a much higher chance of winning the game. Now, granted, Toronto actually have a pretty decent bottom 6 group there. Like, the problem with Toronto is, whilst you've got Matthews and Morgan Riley and John Tavares and Mitch Marner scoring a heck of a ton of goals, you've also got those other bottom 6 guys in there that they'll stick in a clutch goal when you need them to. You never quite know where the goals are going to come from, especially, well, this early on, you've never quite known where the goals are going to come from for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that works to their advantage.
It does.
But at the same time, it's like if you get a Nashville defensive squad coming in and they're the sort of team, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the sort of team that if they get to the playoffs, which are very physical, I think they could find their Achilles heel. They're not a very physical team. And in the playoffs, the physicality is ramped up. They've got a lot of kind of smaller built guys. They have a couple of guys that are bigger that can lay the body out, but not many of them, I don't think. And like we said, all you need to do is shut down some of their star players, and then you're halting quite a lot of their defense, or quite a lot of their offense. So I think Toronto have been they've had a fantastic start to the season. They've been such a fascinating team to watch. And just seeing Austin Matthews, like, I remember sitting there watching Austin Matthews' debut a couple of years ago and him potting 4 goals against the Ottawa Senators. And, you know, it's like, it's his first game, it's his debut, but you think, this kid is going to be a good hockey player. And, like, he had a bit of an he didn't really have an off year last year. He scored, like, 38, 39 goals last season. But his career high is 40, which he scored in his rookie season. This kid is going to be a great hockey player. Like, he's only, 21? 20, I think? And he's already managed to achieve what he has so far here. Like, Austin Matthews, like, he is a great... He's so fun to watch as well. Just what he does with the puck is so fascinating. But yeah, I guess we'll have to find out what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs as the season goes on. So,
now, we're going to talk about ice hockey, but we're going to talk about a bridge.
Yes. So, this is just a little extra bit of news from the NHL that I thought I'd add in. Andy, you also mentioned something in the chat, which we'll talk about towards the end if you remind us. I do want to have a chat about that at some point. But so most NHL fans will know the name Gordie Howe when I say it. I mean, he's one of the most famous, most talented hockey players that's ever lived. It was Wayne Gretzky that broke Gordie Howe's record for most goals. So he's been a highly touted guy throughout his career. Gordie Howe, of course, playing for the Detroit Red Wings the majority of his career. Played a couple of games with the Hartford Whalers at points. But it's been announced recently, and I just thought this was very interesting, that there is going to be a bridge constructed in Detroit that connects to Canada, and they have decided to name it the Gordie Howe International Bridge. I thought that was quite nice. It kind of...
Yeah.
I mean, what better name could you say for a bridge from Detroit to Canada than a Hall of Fame player, Gordie Howe? Like, I think it's great.
Great idea.
Great idea. Nice. Yeah, I think they could have given it a really awful name. And, of course, because Gordie Howe recently passed away, I think it was a couple of seasons ago. Yeah, he played 25 seasons with the Detroit Red Wings. He was actually a native of Saskatchewan. So this bridge is also part of many transformative infrastructure projects across the country. And Justin Trudeau went to mark the start of the construction, which was pretty cool. So it's going to be called the Howe Bridge 2018, or the Gordie Howe International Bridge. So I thought that was nice. Just thought I'd chuck it in there as an extra bit of news. So that's the NHL done. Andy, we'll talk about that topic towards the end when we get to audience questions. We've got a few more things to talk about just before we get there.
They're a couple of short. They're only short bits though, so we won't have to wait too long.
Exactly. So we move on to Kirk's Corner.
Kirk's Corner. I've got something I want to talk about Liam Kirk actually, but we'll do the news of him first.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. So, those of you who know Kirk's Corner, we talk about how Liam Kirk is doing with the Peterborough Petes of the Ontario Hockey League. We know quite a lot of you would like to know how he's doing, but don't really know how to check or don't know the right places to check. That's where we come in. So, after a hot start in the Ontario Hockey League, he scored a goal in his first game. He had 4 points in about 6 games. Unfortunately, Liam Kirk's point production has halted quite noticeably, as he remains at only 4 points in 10 OHL games. So he's kind of lost his scoring touch from what he had very early on in the season. I've been keeping up to date. I followed the Peterborough Petes on Twitter once it was announced that he'd be going down there. And I've been keeping an eye out on basically every single goal that they score, waiting to see Kirk's name come up. And just like for the last 6 games or so, last 4 or 5 games, it just really hasn't happened. But however, whilst he still only has 4 points in 10 OHL games, he is also a +2 currently. He's been kind of bouncing around the lines a little bit. He started the season as the first line left winger. I think the last game they played, he was on the third line. No, last game he was on the second line, but he has played some third line left wing time as well. And he's a +2, so he's clearly doing a few of the intangibles quite well. I guess it's just a case of he needs to get comfortable in the OHL. Like he's got the monkey off his back by getting that first goal, getting those first few points and everything. But Kirk's the kind of guy, from what I've seen of his playing, that once he starts to feel comfortable, he just needs a shot to go his way, and then I think he'll start tearing it up. He just needs to get that one goal, and then I think he'll get going again. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I hope he gets going again. I've got text alerts for their goals, and their results. So I know, as you have with the Twitter, but I've got it on the phone notifications, and I just do the same as you. I look through looking for Kirk. I hope he does well. He's on the NHL. He was on the NHL graphic, wasn't he, for the EA game? So I think once he starts to find his feet again, then he'll kick up again.
Yeah. So for those of you who didn't know, that's actually a very good point, because the EA Sports NHL series, of course, the latest NHL 19. They have to wait until all of the rosters have been finalised for the regular seasons of the leagues that they have the rosters of, before they do their big update and make sure all the players that are on the rosters are in their respective rosters. Liam Kirk, obviously, being part of the EIHL, he wasn't part of NHL 18, so he wasn't automatically on a roster. It was announced that he was going to Peterborough. They waited till he played his first game, because when they play their first game, I believe you get the rights. Oh, sorry, just a big announcement. Justin Schultz of the Pittsburgh Penguins will be out for 4 months after surgery to repair a fracture in his left leg.
Who's got Schultz on their fantasy league?
I hope it's not me. I don't think it's me.
I don't think it's you, no.
No. That's a pretty big loss to Pittsburgh, though. But anyway, Liam Kirk, he's been put in the game rated 56 overall, which I think is fair, considering that he's come from the Elite League. We don't really know what to expect. Liam Kirk, he's joined the OHL. He's been put into NHL 19. I've got some very, very good episodes of our Be a Pro series coming up with that, so make sure you keep an eye out on that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've got some very good stuff coming up there. So that's Kirk's corner. Now,
let me just say my thing quickly.
Sorry,
because
I thought that was your thing with NHL.
No.
My bad.
What my thing is that I think it was today, or was it yesterday? No, it was today. That the shortlist for BBC Young Sports Personality of the Year was announced today. Now, bear in mind that Liam Kirk is the first British trained player drafted by the NHL. He won a gold medal at the World Championships with Great Britain and got them into the top tier. And everything else that he's done.
He won an under-18s as well.
He won the under-18s as well. I knew there was something else, yeah.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been nominated. What does that say about the sport of ice hockey? Now, take nothing away from the people that have, but I'm looking down what, some of the contenders are. Like, some of them, they took a bronze medal. One of them beat a long-time rival for the first time. Bronze medals in swimming. One jockey won the Welsh Grand National and then won another race. A tennis star who was runner-up in the Wimbledon boys singles. And you think, how has Liam Kirk, like one of the players is a footballer and he got player of the month and then championship player of the season. What do you have to do to, is ice hockey so oblivious that for all his achievements he doesn't get noticed?
Yeah, but what he'd have to do in order to get noticed for Young Personality of the Year here in the UK is he'd have to go to the NHL, crack the roster from the second he stepped on the ice, then he'd have to probably score about 100 goals, and then he might get a mention on BBC Sport for like a 5-second bit in between each of the different segments.
But, I mean, to me, you look at Young Personality of the Year, and he says he don't get a mention. I mean, how old actually is he?
He's 18.
Yeah, because he turned 18 this year, didn't he?
Yes.
So he would be eligible as long as you were 17 on January the 1st.
Yeah, I believe he was. That's a good question, actually.
That might explain it, but I saw people bouncing that around on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw the official Sheffield account saying something like that. So I would assume that they would have done their research before saying Then again, it is Simsy, so we don't know. However, I agree. The only thing I can say is I can imagine this is how women hockey players feel.
Probably.
About the NHL and everything like that, perhaps.
Maybe, maybe.
How much do they have to, what do they have to do in order to get a bit of notice? Granted, they do get a lot more coverage than the sport does. I'm talking the Canadian Women's Hockey League and the National Women's Hockey League.
I suspect I already know the answer to this, but will the men's ice hockey team be nominated for Team of the Year?
No, not at all. They should be.
Exactly.
They absolutely should be,
but they won't.
They should bloody win it. Think of every single other.
What about Pete Russell as Coach of the Year as well for everything he's done.
Yeah, think of every single national team we have for every single different sport.
Yeah.
What has any other team achieved in comparison to going to the highest flight of ice hockey for the first time since 1994 with a group of players that this time were actually trained in the UK and not imports and dual nationals?
I know.
That just goes to show you that not enough people care, or I don't even think it's a problem of people that don't care. It's just a problem that people don't know about it. People don't know that all of this good stuff had happened. If people realised that all of this good stuff had happened, they'd start following, and then they'd start falling in love with it. What do we say about, like, 95% of people will go, oh, I didn't hear about hockey for a while. When I first heard about it, I watched a game, and I fell in love with it immediately. That's the response that you always see. I watched it, and I fell in love with it. You never really get a huge amount of people that go, I watched it, it was alright. It was boring. Like
I see Ben says the Devil's got a sports award. I seem to remember that. Wasn't that a Welsh one, Ben? Well, if I remember,
it's not exactly much competition with that, is there?
I think it was, but don't quote me on it. But I'm talking like big BBC, the big event at the end. But anyway, we need to move on.
I think that's ridiculous. I think hockey needs to be given the attention that it deserves. It's on the rise in this country, but the media outlets need to actually give it some bloody attention. Otherwise, it won't be on the rise, and it will just stagnate to this point where we'll just sit there like, we can't go anywhere from here, so let's just keep doing more of the same. And then all of the problems that we've talked about on this podcast won't get solved because nobody will care. Anyway... Moving
KHL.
On. Yes, a quick bit about the KHL. I noticed that Avtomobilist are doing a very good job in the KHL. They have a win streak that started at the beginning of the season and has now reached 18 straight games. Avtomobilist have not lost a single game so far this season. Of course, they have captain Nigel Dawes, who was a former New York Rangers draft pick and player. Played for one of the Kazakhstani teams in the KHL, the one that Ben O'Connor was supposed to go to, I believe, before his contract was taken out. He's, of course, Nigel Dawes been a solid goal scorer in the KHL ever since he joined there. They've, of course, got the likes of Maxime Talbot, who we did a Whatever Happened To video on. David Desharnais, who recently left the New York Rangers, is on that roster as well. Scored his first actual goal only a couple of games ago. But yeah, the record for the most consecutive wins in a KHL season is SK St. Petersburg, with 20 straight wins. And I believe that happened last season. So they only need 2 more wins to tie it, 3 more wins to break it. Are they capable of doing it? Well,
yes.
I think they have the chance to do it. I mean, they've made it 18. Why couldn't they make it 20?
I've looked at the teams they're playing, and yes, they can do it.
Who are they up against for the next 2?
They are playing for their next 2 games. Bear with me a moment. It took me a while to find it because I think autocorrect might have messed up when you sent it to me.
Oh, fair enough.
So they have got Barris Astana.
That's the one. Barris Astana. That's the one that Nigel Dawes used to play for. Yeah.
Sharapove.
Oh, Sharapovets. What's that?
Yeah.
Tractor Sharapov. Is it the one with the bear?
It just says, hang on.
That's Tractor Chelyabinsk. My bad.
No, that's Sharapovets is the one that's like the triangle thing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And then they have to break it is Yaroslavl.
Okay.
They They play Spartak Moscow on the 28th, but they would have already broken it by then.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah, Spartak Moscow, SKA just beat in overtime.
Yeah, so there you go.
Okay, so yeah.
So yes, I think they can do it.
Barris Astana, I think they'll definitely beat. It's Sevastopol Sharapovets, that's it. Zach Boychuk plays for them. Yeah, they've had a pretty rough start. They've had a pretty rough season so far. Yeah, I think they could well do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been a couple of like 1 goal differential going to overtime kind of games for this winning streak for Avtomobilist. I think it'll be very interesting to see whether they do break it, and if so, how long it goes on for.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to see another record broken. The KHL's only been going for, 11 seasons now, so still very young league, still quite a lot going on, but they're already rivaling the likes of the AHL and the NHL in quite a lot of ways, so fair play. Okay, so now we move on to some extra news, and there was a nice feel-good story that I saw earlier on my Twitter feed.
I didn't even know this was a thing until it came up.
No, exactly. So Tim Hortons decided to get themselves in the news for good reasons. Now, having spent the summer in Canada, I can guarantee that Tim Hortons is beautiful. I love Tim Hortons. They are solid. Of course, Tim Horton, former Toronto Maple Leaf. He was a hockey player, then set up this business. He's done all right for himself. Well, he sadly passed away, obviously. But Tim Hortons. So there's a team in Kenya. There's an ice hockey team in Kenya. It's their national hockey team. But unfortunately...
and the only team.
I was getting to that. But unfortunately, This Kenyan hockey team, they are the only hockey team in East and Central Africa. The Kenya Ice Lions, they took to the first ever ice rink in East and Central Africa, a 1,400 square metre rink in the Paneri Sky Centre Hotel in Nairobi, Kenya. Located next to Nairobi National Park is where they take to the rink and play the game that they love. Unfortunately, they don't have any opponents to play against. So what Tim Hortons thought they would do, which was really nice, they flew 12 members of the senior Ice Lions team to Canada to have the opportunity to finally play their first game against another team. This is the first time that this Kenyan team has actually played against an opponent. It isn't just they're going up. So, I mean, we take for granted, like, the fact that we actually have a league here. I mean, we talk about all of the stuff we want changed and the stuff that's good, and we talk about a lot of stuff, and especially in Canada, we take a lot of that stuff for granted. However, there's a team in Africa that has never played against another team in its entire existence. They're literal, like, games, and it's scrimmages against each other. That's all they've been able to do. But Tim Hortons decided to fly out 12 members of their team to play their first game against another team, which I thought was really awesome. I'm just going to see if I can take a look at who it was against.
Yeah, just while you're doing that, thank you to Adrian, who says that Liam Kirk was born on the 3rd of January 2000, so he is eligible for Young Spurt's Personality of the Year by 2 days.
Get it trending on
but
Twitter.
He's not even been nominated. So.
He's not even nominated.
Thank you, Adrian.
Disgusting. How could you not be nominated for it? But anyway,
no one knows. That's the point.
Back to the light-hearted stuff, Chris. Back to the positivity, the feel-good story of this week. So the Kenyan national team, they were once they got to Canada, they were given all new hockey equipment and personalised jerseys that were made for them. So they basically got some real nice treatment there. And then what was really awesome was 2 NHL players turned up to join them on the ice as teammates for their first game ever. And it was none other than Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon. How awesome is that?
Very good.
Going from playing in the only ice rink in East and Central Africa to being flied out to Canada, having an entirely new set of equipment made for you and your 11 other teammates, and then getting to play a game with one of the best players in the NHL and one of the best up-and-coming players in the NHL. That's amazing. And of course, Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon, I believe, have been good friends for quite a while. Like, they've known each other for quite a while. They've come from the same sort of area, I believe. But I think that's really, really awesome.
It is.
Sidney Crosby said, I was honoured to be able to join the Ice Lions as they played their first game against another team. Of course, captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. One of the things I love about hockey is how it's able to reach so many people from so many countries around the world and bring them together. I mean, I think we're a prime example of that. While we played alongside the Ice Lions for their first game, we know it won't be their last, said Colorado Avalanche star Nathan MacKinnon. The team's genuine passion and excitement for hockey is contagious. They were amazing teammates. It was great to play with them. I should also add, just before I carry on reading this bit, I believe the Tim Hortons YouTube channel put up a video about it. If you just go and search Kenyan hockey team, you'll probably find the video about it. And seeing the players' reactions to seeing Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon walk into the locker room where they're getting into their gear in their Kenyan jerseys is absolutely lovely. They're just in utter shock. They can't believe it. It's absolutely brilliant. Bernard, I'm going to butcher this guy's last name. Bernard Azaguer, the captain of the Kenya Ice Lions, said, "It is a dream to not only have the chance to play in Canada, but to play for the first time in full gear alongside 2 of the greatest players of the game. When we first started playing in Kenya, we didn't have full equipment. But now not only do we have that, we can say we've played a real game with some all-star teammates." Tim Hortons also made a donation to the Kenya's Youth Hockey League to help ensure that the Ice Lions' passion for the sport lives on for the next generation. How nice is that? That's such a nice story. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's a real feel-good story. I mean, I hope that it's a great story. I hope that they do find more games. It is going to be difficult in Africa.
Of course.
But yeah, hopefully they can find more games and grow the sport on the continent.
I think the publicity here will help do some good there. I mean, the NHL's been talking about expanding to Asia and China and doing a lot of work there. Maybe once they feel like they've got a good enough foothold there, they'll move into somewhere like Africa. There might be something that happens. we're talking probably like 50 years in the future. But I think that's really, really awesome, the fact that they've done this.
Yeah.
And like the captain said, like, this is the first time they've actually had a full set of equipment for each player. Like, just talk about how much we take for granted as hockey fans that watch the Elite League or the NHL. Like, even as us, who the Elite League that doesn't really have a huge like following, like we've mentioned, and like we can't even get a player nominated for the for Sports Personality of the Year, Young Sports Personality of the Year. There's teams out there that don't have any people to play against. Like that just really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? So yeah, I really wish the Kenya Ice Lions the best of luck. It's awesome that Tim Hortons made a donation to their youth hockey league. Hopefully the sport will start to grow over there, and the continent of Africa will hopefully be able to find the love of ice hockey that myself, Chris, and so many other hockey fans have in countries around the world. And like Sidney Crosby said, it's one of those things. Hockey is one of those things that brings people together. No matter where you are in the world, that's what sports do. Really, they can unite as well as divide, but this is a very good uniting situation, I think.
Yeah.
Fantasy
hockey.
Yeah, so let's move on to fantasy hockey, shall we? Right, let me just get this up.
While Hayden's getting that up, to all of you who are listening now, who are part of the Fantasy Hockey League, please, please, please update your squads.
Yes, you really need to update your squads if you're actually watching
I went through on Friday. I went through all the squads, and all 17 of them, and every single person, apart from Max, Oddman, and myself, had players on the bench who were playing a game and players in the active lineup who had a day off.
Yes.
It takes literally like 5 minutes. I did it in between Hayden and I stopping our pre-podcast chat and the podcast starting. I updated my squad for the week. It took me all of 3 minutes.
Yeah, I literally updated my roster, I think, earlier today, and it must have taken me about 3-4 minutes. All I had to do was move the players that were playing into the active roster, move the players that weren't into the bye week or into the bench, and do that up until next Monday. I literally do it just before all the games take place on Monday. Do them up until next Monday, and then just rinse and repeat. Then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the week. You know?
I only had one day where I had more players playing a game than I had active slots, and I had to think about who to put in.
I had one.
But every other game, it was just a case of you've got a game in, you've got a game in, you have an out.
So, boom, here we go. Here is the... Oh, actually, can I bring up... Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So here's the list. You can't see us for the time being. I'll just run through this quickly. So last week, I won my matchup again against Felix. He probably didn't change his roster. So 75 points to 53. The Pyongyang Sucklords, who I beat in week 1, managed to go 77 to 28 against Clarkie's Infants. The newly named Nottingham Lions, Chris's team, managed to beat Trump's Fake Wife 80 to 52. The Shaw Billionaires just beat the Toronto Thunderbirds by a score of 94 to 91. Max got his first game after his week 1 bye week. Managed to win against the Nottingham Redhawks by a score of 80 to 47. The Denver Sports team managed to beat the Croatian Jets by a score of 97 to 71. The Beanheads managed to beat Portsmouth Pirates 92 to 52. And Habsuck Don KO managed to beat the Duncan PlayStations by a score of 69 to 66. So the closest matchup was, well, 2 tied closest matchups, separated by 3 points, which is pretty crazy. And then we had one matchup that was separated by 40 points. That's probably the biggest gap. Oh no, the Pyongyang Sucklords winning by 39 maybe. So there's a couple of differences there. So for the matchups this week, I know I'm up against the Toronto Thunderbirds. Just let these load up quickly. Hopefully they'll load. There you go. So the Toronto Thunderbirds against me. So Toronto's 0-2-0 and I'm 2-0-0. Undefeated. Then Chris is up against the Nottingham Redhawks. Stanley Elnitz is up against Clarkie's Infants. The Shaw Billionaires are up against Trump's Fake Wife. Then we have the Denver Sports team against the Pyongyang Sucklords. The Nottingham Yeet against Max's Nottingham Outlords. The Portsmouth Pirates against the Croatian Jets. And the Habs Suck against the Beanheads. If we take a look at the standings so far, lots of lovely ads, of course, as well. Let's take a quick second. Why these Olympians went viral. Clickbait. So, in the East, currently myself, Chris, and the Shaw Billionaires are all 2-0-0. Pyongyang Sucklords and Trump's Fake Wife are 1-1-0. And the Nottingham Redhawks, Stanley Elnets, the Toronto Thunderbirds, and Clarkies Infants are all at 0-2-0. Then in the West, wow, Max, 1 game, 1 win. Perfect. So he manages to go first with 1 win. Then the Denver Sports Team and Habsuck have 2 wins, no losses. The Croatian Jets, the Beanheads, and Duncan PlayStations all 1 win, 1 loss. Portsmouth Pirates 0-2, and the Nottingham Ute are 0-1. So there you go. That is what the fantasy sports look like so far. Yeah, that's basically it for that. Like Chris said, sort out your lineups. Make sure they're all good, because we want it to be competitive.
Much as we enjoy winning every week.
Oh yeah, I love winning. Don't get me wrong. Winning's great.
I mean,
my
matchup, legit. I think I would only have won if my matchup had updated his squads. I still would have won, but it would have been something like 2 points.
Exactly. So it's like that's gonna be like, it makes it more competitive and it makes you want to look at it more. Like if you're close in score, if you're beating somebody by like 40 points by Saturday night, you're like, oh, okay, I don't really need to look at it. But if it's like, 5 points difference going into the last game and you both have 2 players playing, you're like, oh, I actually want to look at what's going on. So, yes, yeah. Update your rosters, you idiots. So, the last call. So, we're in overtime now, ladies and gents. Any audience questions you want us to talk about? Anything specific you want us to discuss?
Yeah, got time for a couple of short ones.
Yeah, if there's anything you want us to go in.
Max, what do you mean, Max, when you say it took you a little longer because you're not sure if set?
I use the app. I use the ESPN Fantasy app, and you just go edit lineup and then press save once you've changed everyone, and it goes, yep, sure.
On the computer, it does it automatically as you change each person.
Oh, okay, that's pretty helpful.
Well, it has been doing for me anyway.
Oh, nice. So there is one thing I want to talk about, actually. Andy mentioned it slightly earlier in the stream. So Mark Matheson is having a meeting with the player. He's having a disciplinary hearing as a result of the hit that he laid on Elias Peterson of the Vancouver Canucks. I'm sure Max feels very strongly about this one. Peterson has actually been given a concussion. He's been diagnosed with a concussion. He is out for the next game. So that's a real shame. There's no timetable for his return. Matheson, I expect him to get suspended for what he did. For those of you who don't know, Elias Peterson, he's a great player. He made an absolutely fantastic move against Mark Matheson in their game yesterday, in which the Vancouver Canucks won. He made a... what's it called? He made a really nice move against Matheson. Matheson basically fell to the ice. Slipped over, trying to focus too much. Basically got completely schooled by Elias Peterson. Then Matheson, there was a play against the boards, and Matheson went up and hit Elias Peterson. The hit was relatively okay. Peterson had just moved the puck around the boards to, hoping to get it towards another player or towards the point for his defenseman. Matheson hits him just after the puck leaves his stick. But then he decides to basically like suplex the guy down to the ice and basically giving him a concussion is what's happened. It was a nasty hit.
I'm just watching it now.
Yeah, the whole throwing him down to the ice was unnecessary. It was a disgusting move. Just because you got completely embarrassed doesn't mean you can make that sort of play. I hope he gets suspended. I think he deserves at least a 3 to 5 game suspension for this, or until Peterson comes back from injury. I definitely think that should be a potential scenario as well. That's what I kind of think with some of these plays. Why not just keep the player out until the other player comes back from injury? Surely that's the fair thing to do, right? Like, Peterson's not going to want to miss any more time than he has to, because it's his rookie season and he's wanting to impress his team. I mean, he's already done so, but he wants to keep basically being a dominant player in the league. Matheson, what better way to discipline somebody than by going, the result of your actions means you have to wait until that player is back and healthy from injury. Sure, there's a way that could be exploited if it's like a bottom 6 player and you keep the player out for the remainder of the season so you can keep another player. I mean, you can get into all that. But I think I think Matheson should be suspended at least 5 games. I think that's a really awful hit. The hit itself was fine. The hit itself is a tad late, but, you know, like, that's serviceable. Maybe a penalty, maybe a minor penalty on it, but nothing too much. It's the fact that he picks him up, basically, and throws him on the floor, and you can see he hits his head on the ice.
Yeah.
Like, you've given a young player a concussion just because he showed you how awful you are as a defenseman. Like, come on. Have a bit more pride than that, mate. What a professional would do is go, I've just been schooled. Next time, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. You don't go, I'm going to throw you to the ice and give you a concussion because you deserve it. Because you made me look bad. No. Matheson, I don't really have a problem with Mark Matheson as a player. Kind of lost a bit of respect for him after this play, not going to lie. Think it was a really dirty play. Shouldn't have done it. You're a bit of a tit. So there you go.
A couple of quick ones from Max just to finish off then. A quick one for you, it's pretty much a yes-no. EIHL odd men out return?
Potentially. I'm not opposed to the idea. I've just been super busy with making so much other content. I've got another NHL Replayed going out tomorrow. I think I finished editing it tonight. I've been writing so many Whatever Happened To videos. Because the thing is, I want to try and get more Whatever Happened To videos out. But the problem is, with the editing software that I have, it takes me so long to edit these videos. The Scott Gomez one that went out recently, I literally sat at my computer for about 8 hours straight editing that video. And I'd already edited the first 3 minutes of that before sitting down to edit it. I think I started like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I finished at about 10:30, 11. Like, that's how long a video like that takes to edit. With my editing software is shit, and I'm planning on getting a new one, don't get me wrong. But if I'm not doing like loads of different series, I'm of course trying new stuff out and stuff that doesn't necessarily get the attention compared to other stuff, or doesn't get the views that I wanted it to. I'll kind of put them on the back burner. The EISHL is kind of one of those ones that I've put on the back burner in order to try out new stuff. I'm always trying to like innovate the content that I make on this channel while keeping some of the stuff like concurrent. I'm just trying to find that balance. Of course, I'm still a very tiny channel. I'm kind of running it as like a full-time thing at the moment because I'm currently unemployed. But there will probably come a time where I do find employment, hopefully, and I won't be able to invest as much time into it, which means that my videos might take a hit. So I'm using this time now to experiment with stuff and find what people like and what people watch. Because, like, for example, my Whatever Happened To videos are like one of the most watched series on my channel. So I put in the effort because I know people watch it. Whereas I make a video on a hockey trophy and it doesn't do so well. So I go, okay, put that on the back burner for now. Might put one up when I feel like I want to, or I've got nothing else to put out that day, you know? So that's kind of my opinion on that. Hire an editor. When I earn enough, I will. But at the moment, I don't. So, but we did our first sponsored video on the channel this last week, and I was really happy with that. And I'll actually mention that now. Go to Drafters, drafters.com, watch my video on it. Sign up using the promo code OddmanRushYT. You get yourself $10 free to play some fantasy sports. I want to say a big thank you once again to Drafters for sponsoring that video. I really did appreciate that. It's my first sponsored video on the channel, which kind of makes me feel like I'm actually getting somewhere with this. You can kind of feel like very stagnant in the YouTube world when you're just kind of making videos and getting some views here and bigger views on this video, not so many views on this video. It's a very interesting scenario. YouTube's a very interesting thing as a creator. I don't really consider myself a YouTuber. I've only got like 2.6k subs. I wouldn't consider myself a YouTuber. I'm technically a full-time YouTuber because I don't do anything else, but I'm not like a full-time YouTuber that has 1 million subs and gets $1 every day. So there's a bit about me. Any last things? I think we've got time for like one more quick question.
Well, it's Max saying, any thoughts on the Stevie Lee 45 All-Stars?
Yes.
That's going to be a great evening.
That's going to be very interesting. Unfortunately, I don't think I can make it. I've got to be honest, I haven't really checked. I know, Max, you've been asking me to sort of check up and see what's going on. I don't really have much money at the moment. I'm an unemployed, out of university, I was gonna say student, but I'm not a student anymore. So
Been there.
yeah, probably not. I'll look into it still. I can't remember what it is. It's in a couple of weeks, isn't it? But you know what you should recommend that they do, Max, is do a live stream, and then I'll watch it. I will pay 10 quid to watch that. It's better than
They should have us as the commentary team for it. That's what they should do.
There you go. I would do that. 10 out of 10. And then Gary Moran will find me and be like, "You're brilliant, you two. We're going to do a Panthers webcast for every game. You two are going to do it. We're going to pay you £1,000 a game." The profit that we make from the webcasts split 50-50 between each of you.
Dream on.
Yeah, you know. So, yeah, I think that's a perfect place to finish off the 6th episode in the Icing on the Skate podcast series. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed sitting down with us for the last just under 2 hours or so and talking all things British hockey, the NHL, and everything in between. Yeah, we'll hopefully be back next week. I assume we're going to be back next week, right? What's next week?
Yeah.
Next
week's the 22nd.
Oh, it's close to my birthday. So yeah, I'll be 22. Ooh. So yeah,
it's not brilliant, don't worry.
No, I mean, it's not much different from 21, to be honest. Just another year
not
closer
really.
to death, really, isn't it? So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share. Catch us on Spotify if I remember to upload it at some point. I tried to upload the last one last week and it didn't want to do it, so I'll get on that hopefully today at some point, maybe. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon, but for now, goodbye.